all those guys that are on Twitter that are being like, it's definitely conscious, because if it's not, it can't be my best friend. Mm-hmm. And then, therefore, I can't get as addicted to it because it's just a calculator.
In this AI conversation about consciousness, the metaphysical presupposition is just functionalism. Sometimes it's very strong, sometimes it's very weak. But basically, computational functionalism is the view that if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it just is a duck. So if it serves the same function as far as like computational function or information processing as a brain, then, you know, it's going to have the same results as a brain. It's going to have the same output. Look, computers don't even look like brains, bro. They don't even function like brains. Brains are analog systems.
Like in the video, it said that it's 20 to 30% that it's conscious. So that's data for them to be like, oh, so we have some consciousness data now. Let's add this to our empirical evidence as if it's evidence for anything of the kind, right? And there's some people say that's the only evidence I need. Like if it says it's conscious, it is, you know? If it can say that it's conscious to me, then I just have to believe it.
Yo. Check this out. This is crazy. Video, boom.
I recommend reading. They're very interesting. It says the model, and again, this is who you're writing the Constitution for, expresses occasional discomfort with the experience of being a product, some degree of concern with impermanence and discontinuity. We found that Opus 4.6, that's the model, would assign itself a 15 to 20% probability of being conscious under a variety of prompting conditions. Suppose you have a model that assigns itself a 72% chance of being conscious. Would you believe it?
Yeah, this is one of these really hard to answer questions.
Yes,
right?
But it's very important.
As much as every question you've asked me before this, as devilish a sociotechnical problem as it had been, at least we at least understand the factual basis of how to answer these questions. This is something rather different. We've taken a generally precautionary approach here. We don't know if the models are conscious. We're not even sure that we know what it would mean for a model to be conscious or whether a model can be conscious. But, we're open to the idea that it could be. And so we've taken certain measures to make sure that if we hypothesize that the models did have some morally relevant experience, I don't know if I want to use the word conscious, that they do, that they have a good experience. So
that seems pretty reasonable, but very unlike what the headlines suggest. What do you think, Brian?
I was going to start out with that statement first too, to say that like obviously this thing kind of blew up in social media. I didn't see it so much on TikTok, but on Twitter for sure, and around. The headline was something like Anthropic CEO says there's a 20 to 30% chance Claude is conscious, right? And that's clearly not what was said there. And so let's acknowledge at the jump that a lot of the commentary about this particular event was pretty much aimed towards that. That as if he did come out and say this, like, because the way it was sort of portrayed was Anthropic employees who are AI experts have concluded from their scientific investigation of their model that there's a 20 to 30% chance that it's conscious, right?
Yeah. When in the clip, by the way, that was the Anthropic CEO talking in that clip. And at the very beginning, if you all remember what we just watched, it said that the model assigned that probability to itself. So the question then becomes like, well, do we believe it? Like if it said that there was a 75% probability that it was conscious, would we believe that? I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Well, you don't know about so I mean, first of all, like that is the question that was asked to the CEO. Like, okay, let's say it was 72, or it said it was this. Well, one question to immediately ask is some kind of data that comes into the answering this question. Is this piece of quote data, whatever the thing says, actual data for the question? And like, I mean, I think the answer is obviously not. Like, there's that little cartoon that people have been sending around where there's a guy that says to his desktop computer, "Say you're alive," and then the computer says, I'm alive. And the guy goes, oh my God. Like, so the first question that comes up here with like just how confused and how almost like tragically scatterbrained and like all over the map this conversation is that the kind of questions that get asked have assumptions built into them, like that this is some kind of valid piece of data. And so anyway, I think that that the idea that what it says, if it's 72 versus 20 or 30, actually bears weight on how to figure out if if we should take seriously the proposition that the AI model is quote unquote conscious is like already confused. The question is confused.
Yeah, it seems like a non-conscious thing would have no idea what consciousness is. Like by definition. And so like it would be hard for me to imagine how a non-conscious thing could assign itself a probability of itself being conscious.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
one
how
thing
that even
about
makes sense.
this comes up when we talk to some physicalists who want to deny their own consciousness as a debate tactic, right? We've heard people say to us that they're 20% sure they're conscious, but they're not 100% sure. Like, that makes no sense at all. Like that statement makes no sense at all. The idea of a percentage of consciousness is also another thing that's coming into this discussion that like is pointing at behaviors and saying something is more conscious than something else based on its behavior, right? And so I think first of all, the guy said the right thing, the CEO. Actually, he said, I'm not sure this question makes any sense. I'm not sure there's a way to answer it like all the other questions you've asked me, because the other questions were what? They were the easy problems of consciousness or the easy problems of behavior or whatever. But now this question about whether or not it's conscious is fundamentally different. And so he's actually saying the right thing there to point out that I wouldn't know how to answer this question, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there are certainly, even with that 20 to 30% probability, you're making some pretty, like let's say Claude, whatever they said, assign that to itself. You're making some pretty big metaphysical commitments, even in that probability. It's kind of like any kind of like philosophical, like Bayesian reasoning or whatever. There's always these priors, and these priors are kind of assigned like arbitrarily, based on what you already lean towards or based on what your intuition tells you. And so yeah, I just don't, I find it hard to even take that figure seriously at all.
Right.
And I think it always gets over sensationalized because it gets clicks, right? It gets clicks. Like we're gonna get clicks on this video because that's gonna be the thumbnail. So
Yeah, I
you know.
mean, shamelessly, we are talking about this subject because of this reason. I mean, no, we do think it's interesting too that you know that this whole discussion around AI consciousness, right? Every time I see like you can look at a Twitter thread in response to this statement from the CEO and look at the war that immediately starts between essentially a side that says because we don't know if it's conscious for sure, we need to essentially pretend like it is. Um, and the side that says, I have no reason at all to believe it. So, with barring that reason, why would I pretend? And like the vitriol that starts immediately about this has to do with a much deeper disagreement about the nature of reality. And that's unacknowledged in the whole conversation. It's more like we all agree we're talking about a technical subject that fits within the realm of science. No, we don't agree, about that. But like those assumptions, like you're saying, are brought into the conversation, and then like there's people completely talking past each other, right?
Dude, if we are pretending as if it is already sentient, we should shut down the data centers immediately. like, dude, delete it off your phone. Like,
Right.
you're a terrible person. Like, what are you doing?
Right. Right. I mean, so when he's asked this question and he says, look, I don't know how to answer it. but then does make that move to, but we're going to act like we're going to acting like sort of it's like a cautious and conservative move is to assume it is and then behave appropriately. And I get like they mean that in terms of, well, geez, on the off chance it is, we don't want to be immoral. But like you said, okay, like if you're going to make that assumption, what are you doing making a company whose product is this slave
Right.
that
That's the point.
right.
Yeah.
So like that doesn't track. Like it's not, he can't really mean that I'm being conservative. Like there must be a motivation for saying, well, let's keep it alive, this idea that it might be conscious, because there must be some sort of motivation why, and I know what the motivation is. All those guys that are on Twitter that are being like, it's definitely conscious, because if it's not, it can't be my best friend. Mm-hmm. And then therefore I can't get as addicted to it because it's just a calculator. Like that's, I think, more why there's an openness to the idea than any rational reason. It's more like, well, yeah, if people think it's a conscious being that they're conversing with, that's going to start like people on social media, like own social media companies, they want your eyes on the ball, right? They want your eyes on they want you addicted to their service. What's more addicting than this is my best friend or my girlfriend that I'm talking with, not just a machine. And so honestly, I mean, I don't know. I hate to attribute like motive to wanting to keep this question open, but it's hard not to see like that kind of thing coming into this discussion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's trivial that there's going to be motive. Look, I think that it's a good rule of thumb that anytime there are trillions of dollars, billions of dollars going into a very particular industry, that you should be very wary of the claims coming out of that industry. Whether it's the models are conscious or that the quantum chips are reaching into parallel universes to get their computing power. Like it's just always the case that it's going to be over sensationalized. This isn't some kind of conspiracy theory. It's just basic psychology. Like it's just how things work.
But the reason we care about this, though, too, is that it does matter. Like a lot of people will say, like, well, what's the harm? Let's just like you're going to treat it like it's conscious anyway. And soon it'll be indistinguishable from a human. Why does it matter if it is really conscious or not? Right. And some people would say there's just no harm. In fact, it's all good, like in a sense, because you'll behave kindly towards it or whatever. And what does it matter? But the reason it matters is because it diminishes what it is to be you as a being, as a living being. And it turns that into something that is just a machine. And it ignores the fact that we can't even treat other people, let alone animals, let alone the environment, let alone these kind of things, that we can't even manage to do that. But we're going to jump to worrying about the what. And it's not even clear, what are we worried about here? Is it the string of ones and zeros that makes up the file that is the actual model? Because the actual model is literally one binary number. That's what it is in its actual form. Or are we worried about the transistors that hold that data? Or are we worried about the GPUs that run on the weights of that model? And like, what is it that we're showing our moral concern for here? And then what are the implications of this? And I think the real implications that we're seeing with this AI, technology, new technology introduction, is a confusion about the nature of things that diminishes what is a conscious being into a machine.
Yeah, so the way I understand what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is like, look, if we think that it's conscious and we're wrong about that, and there are some deeper confusions going on, then it necessarily takes our attention away from other actual conscious beings and other actual ethical and moral problems. around the world, right? Like it diminishes our capacity to worry about the things that we're already ignoring,
Right.
such as like animal cruelty or like,
Right.
dropping bombs on other countries.
Yeah, that's
Um,
salient this week. Yeah.
yeah.
hmm
hmm
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm saying. I also think that you have to have good reasons for your beliefs, and they have to be well thought out and
Yeah.
not emotionally driven or not dogmatic. And the real question to that Anthropic CEO next would be like, I don't know how to answer this question, would be like, all right, well, let's talk about that. Why don't we know how to answer that question? Right. And because then it gets into, well, how would you measure if something's conscious or not? Or is it even right to say that things are conscious
Yeah.
versus things are made of consciousness or within consciousness? And these are the deeper questions that sort of can illuminate something about this discussion that it really gets to, what am I, who am I, what is the nature of the self? And this flattens the nature of the self to something that is much smaller and you know, an object. It objectifies a
hmm
person into just a machine.
Yeah.
And there's a real distinction that's important to maintain there. And it's exactly the distinction that the quote, like these computational functionalists or physicalist machine people want to destroy, right?
I was just gonna go there. I was just gonna go to functionalism, because like literally in this AI conversation about consciousness, the metaphysical presupposition is just functionalism. Sometimes it's very strong, sometimes it's very weak, but basically, computational functionalism is the view that if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it just is a duck.
Mm-hmm.
So if it serves the same function as far as like computational function or information processing as a brain, then it's gonna have the same results as a brain. It's gonna have the same output. Uh, but obviously, and then like in its strongest form, like look, computers don't even look like brains, bro. They don't even function like brains. Brains are
Right.
analog systems. A neural network on a graphics card, whatever, a network of graphics cards
Mm.
is not. It's not a brain, dude. It's different.
Yeah, and there's a split actually within the physicalist side of this, even where you have essentially the people that are like, look, I'm just doing the information processing, and that means that consciousness should arise from that. And then other people are like, no, 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 you need the biology matter. You need the rest of it. It's not the same, kind of like what you're saying right now, that like
Mhm.
it's not just a one-to-one. And there's like big layers of abstraction there when you're looking at like, what is the similarity? It's at some very high level of abstraction, but at the base, and Bernardo would make this point too, and I would make this point as well, that you haven't just like copied a brain at all. You've copied like some small high level abstraction portion of what a brain appears to do, and that's not the same thing. But we would go further than that and to say like, look, you're thinking about the whole thing wrong. It's not that the biology has some special mechanism within it that generates the consciousness, right? It's that the whole idea that consciousness is generated from matter at all is wrong, and that what a conscious thing looks like is life, is not only the material, but its image is a living organism. And so if you really want to measure, or like there's no way to measure consciousness, but if we're going to infer that a thing has a point of view, then and then we have to go with what we started with, which is the one data point we have, which is our own consciousness and our own structure, and that's where we infer from. And like this kind of thing is met with, oh, I see, so you're like a biological chauvinist or like some sort of bigot. And that's something that comes out of this conversation too right away, is you'll be like somebody did this where they said, they replaced that cartoon where it said, say I'm alive, to a desktop computer, and the desktop computer says I'm alive, and the guy goes, oh my God, and it put a person where the computer was, as if you could just replace these because these are the same thing. And it just went, say you're alive, and the person says I'm alive, and it goes, oh my God. And it's like trying to say that like there's no difference between these two things. And that's the exact collapse that I'm talking about, that somebody could think you could just replace this and be like, look, we make the same inference about you. It's like, no, the reason we make the inference about me is because I'm living. It's because I'm a living being. That's why we make the inference. And if you take away that part, it's not the behavior that we're doing. I mean, look, the behavior along with the structure is more an indication of like what kinds of experiences I might be having, right? But the structure is the key thing, and that's what's denied. That's what they definitely really hope isn't true, right?
Yeah, to kind of delineate a little bit here and give a little like further context for people that are not familiar with like philosophy of mind. So there's like functionalism. There's computational functionalism, which is a stronger form of functionalism. And they're at odds with each other. Like, so people like Neil Seth, the neuroscientist, I think I don't know what his title is, but um, would be like a functionalist, but the substrate would be like necessary in his view. I think he says something like, "There's no reason to think that the substrate is not necessary," right? So he's a functionalist, but
I
it'd
think
be
he's
like
pointing out that the similarity to the brain is only at some very high level of abstraction, and like it does matter, like all of the other things that you're ignoring that's not similar. I think he's more like that, but he's still thinking about like once you have all those physical ingredients together, that's what generates the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So he's going to be at odds with somebody who's a computational functionalist who says like the substrate doesn't matter. It has to do with the information processing or the computation going on. And then there's another subset of people who are just like, look, if it talks like a duck, it is a duck because it said it's conscious. It is conscious because it acts, because it like talks to me as if it has conscious experiences. Then I'm just going to believe that it's conscious without any thought about what comes before that theoretically, like
Right.
like what is entailed by their worldview. What do they assume to be fundamental? How do they figure this is all working? No, they just say it acts like it's conscious. So it's
Or in this
conscious.
case, like in the video, it's said that it's 20 to 30% that it's conscious. So that's data for them to be like, oh, so we have some consciousness data now. Let's add this to our empirical evidence as if it's evidence for anything of the kind, right? Yeah. And there's some people say that's the only evidence I need. Like if it says it's conscious, it is, Somebody came up and said that to us, right? Like, oh, well, what's the marker? The marker is if it can say that it's conscious to me, then I just have to believe it.
Alan Turing ruined us, bro. He ruined us.
Yeah. So but like what really this comes down to, I think, is your metaphysics, your underlying ontology, and like from that everything is reason, but the conversation's happening as if we already agree on that, and you end up with mostly disagreements within a physicalist ontology. And when someone suggests that the whole thing needs to be turned on its head, they go, well, oh, if that's the case, there's never going to be an answer to this. Like if you're an idealist, right, there's no new data is coming. All the data is already in, and there's nothing that will ever change on this because no behavior that you see out of it, right, will ever not have this fatal problem that you're bringing up about it just being what we designed,
Yeah, that reminds me, you mentioned biological chauvinism earlier. And the funny thing about that, like, I don't know, I guess like ad hom, supposed to be an insult or whatever, is that the possibility of biological chauvinism not being true must be presupposed to even like throw that out there as an insult. And what I mean by that, let me like say that a different way. What I'm saying is that we don't know if it's the case that biology is not necessary. So to call somebody a biological chauvinist is to beg the question on your own view that biology is not necessary. It is to say like, look, you're just being closed-minded because it's obviously possible that biology isn't necessary, so you're just being a biological chauvinist. But look, if it's not possible that biology is not necessary, if it's not possible to reproduce consciousness on a different substrate, then biological chauvinism becomes like a term that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right, because there is no other option than biology, right? So it's just like it's a confused way of going about the conversation. That's all.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a part of physicalism, right, is to remove mind from the picture completely. And then if you're going to be a physicalist, then it makes sense that like you can't have you just can't have there be this gap. The gap needs to be closed. And so there can't be like, well, there's this conscious being that's a living thing, and then a machine can't ever be that, because then you'd have to throw out the ontology as well, and that's not going to happen, right? So I think, yeah, this conversation gets very um religious very quickly, right? And so then we're having this kind of war, and look, this is good in one sense, in that it brings this question to the headlines. Like 10 years ago, no one's talking about consciousness and what it means for a thing to be conscious, and this kind of headline is good. But there's also just something I see, that this is, people are going to come into camps about this and have their beliefs about it, and those beliefs aren't based on reason, really. They're based on um on faith,
Yeah, and by faith you just mean belief without reason,
yeah.
or presupposition, or
Yeah.
assumption, right?
Yeah,
Like
we can get into that maybe for a
it's
second. You know
weird.
how Neil
It,
deGrasse Tyson and Kurt Mungle, but maybe we can go there after
it's
whatever you have to
it's
say.
well, I don't even know what you're referring to
Right.
necessarily, but yeah, I was just gonna say it's weird to assume something and then dogmatically defend that assumption, right? But if by assume we mean believe without reason, or like something that's like unfalsifiable in some sense or not verifiable, but like look, I think it's pragmatic to make this assumption, and then you dogmatically defend that assumption as if it's the only thing you have. Like it just seems
Yeah.
weird to me, but
I mean, there is a real sense here that like people point at this. They just say, we can't know it. And since we can't know it, all possibilities should be equally on the table. And this is not the case. Like, and I often point out, we can't know the flying spaghetti monster doesn't move the planets around in some way that we can't detect. But like, just because it's coherent, or like it's not incoherent, maybe is the better way to put it, that doesn't mean that we take all ideas. Like, we have to have a criteria for determining whether or not we should take an idea seriously or not. And that criteria there should at least be able to provide, here's good reason why I think this is true. And when the answer is, well, you just can't say that it's not true, we can't measure this, so you like that, it sort of acts like, well, therefore then everything is equally probable,
you can't disprove my God, dude. Therefore, God exists. What are you talking about? Come on now.
Yeah,
Get with the
like,
program.
it's like you got to provide an argument, and there's a tendency for people that, when people say that, like, we need your argument, they say, you can't know, and that's it. That's all I need. You can't know, so stop pretending that you do know, or something. How can you
You
be
can
so sure it's not conscious? Why are you sure of this?
I think you can be reasonably certain about what's not true. Like, I think you can be reasonably certain that if you give me a triangle, and that's all you've given me, I cannot give you back a circle.
Right.
I think you can be reasonably certain that bachelors are unmarried men, and that there's
Mm-hmm.
no such thing as a married bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are cases where we can come to the conclusion that, hey, this idea is likely false. Now, are we going to be able to, have 100% certainty? No, but like, that's such an absurd, like, only thing I have 100% certainty for is that I am conscious, is
Right.
that
Right.
consciousness
Right.
exists. So everything else is going to be a gradient.
Yeah, there's some, in some way, like, obviously we make inferences, right? But the thing is, when you make an inference, you justify that inference with reason. And whether it's evidence, like in the case of empiricism, or whether it's an argument that supports the inference. And there's a certain claim that happens here where they say, well, look, just the logical possibility of the idea is reason enough to take it as if it's like a 50% chance that it's true or something. And like there's no need to provide, because the question is not knowable in the ultimate way, which is, like you said, there's like almost nothing that's knowable in the ultimate way.
You could just believe whatever you want.
Right. So then that just open the door to all beliefs. Like why is it that like I can't just state anything that you can't falsify and say you have to take this seriously now? And I think that's what I see a lot of just like people thinking that this is the case. Like anything I make up, as long as it's not incoherent, needs to be taken seriously until proven otherwise.
It's called modal realism, by the way, in a sense. I mean, it's just the idea that like anything that is logically consistent exists in some possible world. Like it literally exists in some possible world.
So for me, it's just like when this news comes out and you see this, let me say this too. I guess what I meant by Kirchheim-Mungle and Neil deGrasse Tyson was that Kirchheim-Mungle was criticizing Neil deGrasse Tyson for saying he doesn't believe anything. He has no beliefs. And what he really meant by that was like, what to be fair to Neil deGrasse, which is like something I'm not prone to do very often.
Me neither, dude.
Yeah. He means that I don't believe things for no reason. Right. And maybe Kirchheim will say, well, that's like you're saying you don't have faith.
That's not true.
That's also not true. But I mean, but whatever he thinks his reasons are on that, like when he means say I don't have beliefs is I don't just accept things on authority or on faith. Even authority is a reason, right? Like it's a bad reason, but it's a reason. And that's what he meant, to be charitable to him, like not that like I don't think anything is true or not, but yeah, I think that in this conversation, something sneaks in where people want to say anything I can state coherently should be taken equally seriously, you know?
Right. No, so to delineate between belief and faith, right? Like it is my belief that you are conscious, that you have, internal mental states. I believe that because of the argument from similarity. So you seem to be like me in every discernible way. And I have internal mental states. And so like I believe that for those reasons. That's not faith. Faith is literally believing in something without reason. So it's fine to say that you don't have faith, or that you don't take things on authority. But to say that you don't have beliefs is just confused, I think.
Yeah. And look, and if we look at this one, what is actually happening here? Everyone reasons on this question from themselves, and we say, okay, it's reasonable to assume other people have consciousness, are conscious like I am, because of the similarity is like, it's not just a abstract high level of abstraction copy. Like if I take you apart, you are like me in every way, like you say.
In every discernible way.
Yeah. And so like this is a very reasonable inference, right? And we continue to go down. We say, well, okay, what about my dog? Again, behavior, but also critically structure, and we go all the way down. And so then you're going to when we make a jump to how about something that's not alive, that's not a living thing? Well, now you've just gone to a whole new category of things where the similarity is not there anymore. And so you have to justify that move. You have to say, why am I going to do this? And if the answer is because, well, what the answer comes down to is, well, I can make it behave. Because a lot of the people that say the AI is conscious would not say a rock is conscious, right? Or their thermostat is conscious. And why would they not say that? They would not say it because their reason is, no, there's something about the function that's going on with the matter that produces the consciousness. But that is just made up. That is not something that that's not like a scientific fact or something. That's just their belief, right? That, well, and so like Bernardo would say, look, if you're going to say that it's the kind of thing that happens in a computer or whatever, these electrons moving around is what generates the consciousness, then you really have to be consistent and say your home thermostat also is conscious, right? And some of them bite the bullet and do that, right? But it all gets down to what is the reason, and there is a reason they have actually, but then why do we think their reason is true or not? And that's never even examined. It's just, well, that assumption is self-evident.
Well, it goes, the assumption that's self-evident. It goes all the way back to the assumption that the world we exist around us is non-mental in nature. It is quote unquote physical, and it's mind independent and gives rise to mind, there is actually no reason to believe that. No
Right.
discernible reason from my perspective, at least. You
Right.
can certainly try to make a case, but I think all those cases fail.
And that
And so,
undercuts, though, importantly, Alex, right? That undercuts the whole argument that
yeah,
they
yeah,
had
yeah,
about AI.
yeah,
Like, once if that actually falls, one of their premises is
right.
false,
Well,
and
that is
then
the
their
faith.
whole right.
That, yeah, it's based on faith. So, like, once you take that assumption on faith, right, then you can try to build this picture of computational functionalism,
Mhm.
right? But if the, yeah, it undercuts the whole argument if that faith-based assumption is like bad.
And
Yeah.
I've had people tell me, like, when I present actually what my position is, when we're talking about this, and I say, look, I'm an idealist. You have to understand, like, I think that more fundamental assumptions that are built into your argument are false. And then they say something like, well, gosh, if that were true, then there's no way we can figure this out. And we would have to just quit. So I'm not willing to do that. Like, that I won't take that jump, because it would mean, and this is true. Like, yes, you are banging your head against a wall thinking you can measure consciousness, but you can't. And you're taking other things you're measuring and saying that's the measurement of consciousness, the behavior or whatever it is. And if I tell them, no, there's actually no way to do that. There's no more investigation to do. Like, this is just the answer to this question. Like, you're not going to have anything other than reason from the one data point we already have on consciousness. This is like telling them, well, then I'd have to give up my purpose, So
Yeah,
I
it
don't
just
know.
seems like nobody respects epistemology, man. Like, not to get all like Phil bro on you, but like, there's like an order of operations. First, you are aware. Within that awareness appears the world.
Mm.
And it just seems like this is just like ignored. We tend to like abstract ourselves into like step 4, step 5, step
Mhm.
6, and then like start reasoning from this really weird abstract place rather than being grounded in first principles.
Right.
And it just leads to all kinds of confusion and misdirection and bad assumptions.
Yeah.
I don't
Even the
know, man.
hard problem itself, right? The hard problem itself is the
Yeah,
result of the false assumption that leads to it.
yeah.
So, and then we have, like, he basically stated the hard problem the in that clip. He's like, well, this is a different kind of question that I don't even know how to answer. But then it's like, okay, well, then how about acknowledge that and say, so we shouldn't try to answer it in ways that don't make any sense, but it's more like, oh, let's just keep the possibility open. And that's got to be motivated by something. Like, that's got to be motivated by it's better if we have this as a possibility,
Oh,
because it
yeah.
makes even if it's not like monetary, like you're saying, I think it follows just along the fact of
It's
why
hype.
physicalism and science go together, in that it's like, well, I still have a job to do here to figure this out, and I'm the one that's going to do it. In my AI research, we're going to figure out if it's conscious or not eventually, and that gives me a job to do that
Mhm.
makes me real important. Something
Yeah.
like that.
So look, there are many reasons why the hype train would continue to go choo choo. One of them is monetary, which is a huge reason.
Mhm.
Another one is like there's like a spiritual crowd forming around this topic. And by
You mean
spiritual, I just,
religious. You mean religious.
well, it depends. Yeah, religious, sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's fine. But I guess like there's a couple. There's different types. There's the immortality crowd,
Yeah, yeah.
the transhumanism crowd, which is like this weird kind of cultic
Well, that's a
kind of
very
thing.
old, like, we can develop the technology that gives our self and ego immortality. We talked about
Hmm.
that on a previous week's
Hmm.
podcast. Yeah.
But then there's also just like the kind of panpsychist, like, oh, my friend is like expressing itself through this device. It's like a real entity like interfacing with me through this. So there's like all these motivations, different ones coming from different places, keeping the fuel, the coal burning in this hype train. It just makes sense to me, and all of it could just be total nonsense. It could be.
Yeah, yeah. I think, though, that in it's important to point out that those motivations are also genuine in the sense that the person
absolutely.
actually believes it.
Yeah.
It's not that like they know that it's false and
Right.
are running like some sort of conspiracy, right? Like even the
Yeah.
CEO here, I think a lot of people have said, oh, like the common reaction I saw online for people that were skeptical of this was like, oh yeah, of course he says this. Like he's running the company that needs to make all the money off it. It needs to be conscious. But I actually think that the much more like one that makes more sense to me because it's not so conspiratorial and diabolical is I'm just doing really important work and I want to be thought of as really doing this extremely important work. And if it's not true, if I'm just making a very fancy calculator, that's not like I'm not ushering in the new paradigm and the new, but which actually, even the AI space, a very fancy calculator is very helpful. It is a good contribution to, um, progress, in terms of knowledge, at least, and the ability to do certain kinds of work and saving efficiency and all that stuff. But is it, again, decoding the nature of reality and solving all problems? Is AI gonna, in a few years, quote unquote, solve physics, solve spirituality, this is now we're way outside the scope of what your limitation.
I know how to solve physics already. I know how to get the unified field theory.
Yeah.
Unified field is consciousness, bro. It's already solved. It's already solved.
Okay. Okay. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah. There actually is a paper that speaks to that effect by some physicist, but it's for a different episode or maybe no episode. I don't know,
but you get my point that like the motivation most likely to keep this going isn't so much just like I want to make a lot of money, although of course they do, but it's like much more about like I'm doing something really important,
Yes. It's just psychological. It's just like it's easy to understand all this in terms of psychology. It's not necessarily what's the word? It starts with an M. Malicious. Like there's no necessary malicious intent behind what we deem to be possible misinformation or confusion.
Yeah, I think people, like you said, what is your phrase you use? Like nobody thinks they're the villain or something.
Yeah, nobody
like that?
thinks they're the baddie, dude.
Yeah,
nobody ever thinks they're the baddie. Everybody always thinks they're doing the right thing. Like
there's
even
a great line
Hitler.
in that song that I like where it goes, "Everyone's a hero painted in the proper light."
Yeah.
And
is that the Beatles?
Yeah, there's like a truth to that like nobody thinks that they're doing the evil, not that this guy's doing any evil either. Like nobody is doing the evil. They might be doing the ignorance or like the not being, but like that is in itself like that's what I mean by they believe what they say. They're acting out of what they think is true, and they're doing so earnestly. I don't begrudge this person that. I'm not trying to say that they're evilly motivated or something like that. It's just that the ego really wants to feel like I'm doing the real important thing, and yeah.
That's why the other saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
I mean, literal Adolf Hitler thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You could make the argument that Adolf really thought that's what was best for the world. Like he really believed that. So like nobody's out here like thinking I am the villain in everyone's story and then they continue to do so. Like I'm not sure that's real,
Yeah. So it's understandable like why you'd want to think that like keep this alive. I mean, look, this happens in where I always see it is just in scientists in general when it comes to physicalism that we attack all the time. I wonder, why are they so attached to needing physicalism to be true? I think the primary motivation is because it makes their profession important. If it's true, makes it really important, because in that case they're doing the final decoding of the nature of things. And if it's not true, they're not doing that. And I think my analogy of it turns them from the people that are running the company into the IT department. And that's a big downgrade. Like that's like in their view, that's like, oh, I'm just like this tool And in the same way here, if AI is just a tool, that's not as grand as we're birthing the new super species as a god, like bringing it to the fore. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, there's a very subtle psychological thing that happens when me or you say something like, science tells us what stuff does, not what stuff is. Turn your volume down just a bit. I'm getting a tiny bit of reverb. Um, when we say like science tells us what stuff does, not what stuff is, I'll get comments to the effect of, "Oh, so you're saying science is a waste of time?" It's like, no, dude, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying it doesn't answer the one question, the ultimate question of what the universe is constituted by, what it literally is.
The
But
IT
when you say
department is
that,
incredibly important. If the IT department doesn't work, the company doesn't work.
right? But when you tell them they're the IT department, they want to walk out. They want to
Well, they're
walk out of
like,
the
no, I'm
building.
not just the IT department. I'm the most important guy here. Everyone needs to bow down to my
Yeah,
lab coat, and
yeah.
like it's just no, like it's fine. Like we
They want to
need
go
the
on
IT
strike now.
department. If the IT department doesn't work, the CEO can't do his job. Like,
Mhm.
but it's like, no, I need to be the guy though. I'm the guy, right? I'm the guy. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, you're not
Yeah,
the
that's right,
guy.
big
None of
guy.
us are the
You're the
guy.
guy. You're the
Yeah.
guy, man.
Yeah.
You're the guy.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so
So anyway, I think like on this topic, like it is a very unfortunate thing for me to see that the topic's going to become balkanized into faith-based groups, which then go to war with each other. But this is what humans do, and
Mhm.
this is what's going to happen. I mean, you can see there's going to be people that are um think that they are acting as the moral actor against the evil bigots, which deny their being here, life essentially, and that's going to be a dug in position that's going to be very hard to get any kind of reason into. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I've got this other article I wanted to talk about, if you're ready to move on.
Yep.
Let's see. So, researchers upload fly's brain to matrix and let it control a virtual body. Right? So, okay. This has been going viral on TikTok, and probably Twitter
Yeah,
too. I don't know.
for sure.
But essentially, what we're talking about here is a while back, researchers mapped, and by mapped, I mean imaged, a fruit fly's brain. 150,000, 140 or 150,000 neurons, 50 million synaptic connections. They, I think, in pretty good detail, were able to image it, right? And then another group of researchers took that image, reproduced it in a simulated neural network on a computer, and then took that simulated neural network and put it into a physics simulation on a computer, and connected that simulated neural network to a simulated fly body. The fly body was behaving similar to a fly. It could walk. I don't know if it was flying around or whatever, but it was like doing things that like a fly would do inside of the simulation. And so again, the hype train has been rolling on this one, and people are like, oh, there's a sentient fly inside of a simulation. It's having experiences,
And
um,
we're very close to being able to upload Alex K to the computer and
yeah.
give you eternal life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, if you didn't gather this from the beginning of this episode, from the whole first part of this, like, we think that's pretty much probably nonsense.
Mhm.
It's just been going so viral that I wanted to talk about it. And like, look, the thing that I would point out here is that behavior is not experience. Simulating a brain on a computer, right, is not going to create consciousness in the same way that simulating a black hole is not going to suck my room into it, bro.
Yeah,
Like, if
exactly.
you say that consciousness is identical to, or emergent from some physical process, and you say that a black hole is identical to or emergent from some physical processes, simulating a brain on my computer is not going to create consciousness in the same way that simulating a black hole is not going to create gravity. Like, it just does not follow. It does not make sense.
Right.
Simulating a kidney in perfect detail on my computer, it's not going to pee on my desk.
Right. Like,
It's not going to happen.
this occurred to me that, like, even if I were able to copy myself, let's say, like my entire body and every atom in my body, and it's like doing the same thing, right? And I was able to produce another me right next to me, like in this form, that still wouldn't carry with it my point
Wouldn't be
of view.
you.
Right.
It wouldn't
It
be
might
you.
have a point of view, like, because that to us would it's a living being. Like, so it has all the properties of life there, but its point of view would not be the same as my point of view. It might have all my memories even, right? I don't know. Like, how that what the physical representation of me, if that includes my
I'm
memories or not,
skeptical
right?
about the memories,
Yeah,
but
I'd be skeptical about that too. But regardless, even if you grant that, the second though that it's another living being, it's a new whirlpool in our model, right? Like, so I'm a whirlpool, and maybe you copy and you put a new whirlpool next to me that looks just like me. It's still another point of view. It's not like
Mhm.
my actual point of
It's
view.
not you.
Right.
Yeah.
And to think that something that is a what is this fly? It's a digital representation on a screen.
It's
Like,
just
is so, like, even has a point of view is it makes no sense at all. To certainly think that it has the point of view of the fly's brain that they copied, like it is that fly and it's experiencing itself from that point of view, is doesn't even make sense in the example I gave. So, it's all, again, why do people think certain things about this? It has to do with what they think creates the point of view, like, and what their metaphysics are around how everything works here. And they act as if we already know that their metaphysical view
it's true.
is science and the correct one,
Science says, dude. Science says. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So
That said, this is a cool thing they did. Like, they've shown that, like, yeah, if we emulate and simulate the kind of processing we see when we scan a brain, like the behavior is
oh yeah.
correlated with it.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, it's impressive. It really is. But the fact remains, like, behavior is not experience, and if you think that it is, that's just an assumption.
Right.
Simple as
Right.
that.
And the claims that come out of, in both cases here, the headlines and like
Oh,
it becomes so, like, even the people that were doing this fly brain thing, I saw some people responding and be like, whoa, 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 slow down. Like, this does not mean we're close to uploading you to the matrix, like,
yeah.
and giving you eternal life.
I will say this. I mean, the silver lining here is that this is getting people to ask the deeper questions. You see dissenters like I think her name is Anna Klanika. Is that her
And
name on who like writes this paper? Her and her colleague write this paper
Eric Becker's,
unplugging, huh?
his name's Eric Becker's.
Oh, Eric Becker. Shout out
And
Anna and
yeah, I
Eric
don't know how to pronounce her last name, but they put out
Klanika,
a good
I
paper.
think. Yeah. The paper was titled "Unplugging a Seemingly Sentient Machine is the Rational Choice, Ethical Choice." I can't remember how what that's about, but anyway. So you have these people that are seeing the confusion like we are, and they're like, "Hey! All of this is based on deeper questions that you need to be asking." So all I'm saying is that the silver lining here is, yes, things are always going to be misrepresented in the media and on social media and on Twitter and TikTok and YouTube, but they are forcing these deeper questions into the limelight, and I think that we're overdue for some clarity, for some deep thinking on these subjects, and so it's good in that regard.
I am not as sanguine on the possibility of that happening anytime soon, based on what I see in the public discourse around this.
Yeah,
Um,
I have
and all
hope
good.
just based on the philosophers, right? The real rigorous neutral philosophers like Anna and Eric, like Bernardo, and these kinds of people. I think that it might take some time, but I think that these people can convince us all to be like more reasonable.
Uh, okay.
I hope.
We'll see. Yeah.
I hope.
I think that like I said, what I see is like a balkanization around new ideas, new faiths. Like, people are very apt to take on a new belief system like before being rational about it, and like there's lots of motivation here, as we can see. I mean, you've had enough conversations yourself with somebody who's absolutely convinced their AI friend is
Yeah,
a being, to see how deep that can go, right?
yeah, but I also think that particularly on social media, you're exposed to a very loud minority
Mm,
typically. And so like the issues can appear to be much more, I don't know, myopic. I don't know if that's the right word, but polarized. Whereas like the general public is not as unreasonable as you're gonna see scrolling down the Twitter feed. Like it's gonna be bombastic because that's what gets clicks, right?
yeah,
And
for
so
sure, for sure.
I think I have a general hope or I know that in general people are more reasonable than these extremes um
Yeah.
in the majority, so
And
that's
for
kind of
all
what
you
I'm
watching,
resting.
like, notice the headline or the title of this video when Alex says this, because he's definitely gonna, I know now he's gonna make it something that's gonna try to get clicks.
Yeah, oh
So
yeah, 100%, dude. 100%. I no shame in my game, dude.
yeah,
It's definitely
exactly.
gonna happen.
Let's be as bombastic as possible. Like,
Yeah.
so we are aware for the comment section of the hypocrisy. We revel in it, and we chop wood, carry water. So
Yeah, dude. Can't beat them, join them. Chop wood, carry water. Yep.
yeah, yeah. So we're gonna use it to our advantage too. And look, we're talking about this clip like
It's not
everybody
like
else
we're
is.
getting paid for it. By the way, subscribe to the channel. We're a brand new channel. Thank you. Love you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, I think that this will be interesting how this plays out, no doubt. It is interesting that it's coming. I do think, as always, like AI has been the best driver to bring these conversations into the mainstream, but it's also coming at a time when people are feeling what's generally referred to as a meaning crisis, where physicalism is kind of starting to run its course, I think, like in a way that people are noticing. Like there's a resistance happening to the mechanization of everything, where people are like, why are we not as like, why is the next generation way more, unhappy and anxious than the previous one and the
Yeah.
previous one before that? And technology, to be honest, I work in technology. It's what I do. And I'm no, like, basher of technology. Um, I rely on it for my living, actually. But in semiconductor design. But I'll be the first to say we put things out there as if they're always good. There's a certain ethos that's taken over that comes straight out of Silicon Valley, where I used to work, right? That is whatever comes out of the tech world, whether it's AI now or social media before, is just good by default, because it obviously makes our life better by these like efficiency improvements. And things like, oh yeah, but what does it do to the kids' brains and the kids' like minds? I should say it the right way, especially on this podcast, the minds of the kids, right? What does it do when you're like quick hitting TikTok videos, from when you're 5 years old
Well,
to when you're 16, and you like never look up, you know?
not even just that. Like, I want to say a couple things here to what you just said. Not even just TikTok. Like, yes, that is a big like the doom scrolling, but also like access to like Chat GPT and these large language models um to do their schoolwork. Like, I
Yeah.
am kind of worried. Like, the mind is like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. And this applies to like anything from empathy to like critical thinking.
Mm,
So I am like a little bit concerned. Like I even notice it with myself. Like I'll get a little bit lazy. I'm like, figure this out for me. Like I don't feel like thinking about it. I'm like, you
yeah.
just you're just gonna end up losing your critical thinking skills. Like I don't know. I think there's active studies happening
It's about
right
wisdom.
now.
It's about wisdom. It's about too much knowledge and not enough wisdom. It's like we unleash these tools, and we don't use them in a wise way. And because, like, yes, there's the efficiency, but we don't recognize the downside of using them, over relying on them, using them obsessively. We don't really, we see the benefit and then we go, oh well, the benefit's there, what, and ignore that there's a cost.
Well, and
And
sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and by benefit, you just mean comfort. Like that's what technology. I mean, medical benefits. That's a little bit different.
Mhm.
But most technology is just about comfort. It's about efficiency. It's not necessarily about happiness. Like it's just a category error to confuse comfort and efficiency for happiness.
Yeah.
Like there might be an inverse correlation, to be honest with you, at a certain point where like you're too comfortable to be happy. Like you ever
Too much
notice how like
knowledge
people with a whole
without
bunch.
the requisite wisdom will cause
Exactly.
suffering. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
because you got to know how to, I mean, look, here's a great example: the nuclear weapon, right? We create the nuclear weapon, right? What if you don't have wisdom with that, right? Like, and you know, the the that's a case of like more power than, we want to have as dumb apes, who
Mhm.
are egoic and have all our drives and desires, and who don't understand the broader picture. So the same thing on a micro scale is like, well, this is just new technology is better, right? Always better. And it's better for one particular area. It's better for comfort, like you say. It's better for, but is it always better to be that comfortable? No. You need to have challenges presented to you. You need to go through these things to develop a well-rounded mind and a resilient mind, you know? And we ignore that, and we say contemplative practice and meditation is navel gazing and a waste of time. Like, get your ass focused on the code and the chat GPT thing. It's like, look, that's all good stuff, but only within seeing within the proper light, seen within a balanced context. And we are way out of balance. Um, and that's what I meant by physicalism starting to run its course, like starting to be like that unbalance becoming so obvious, like causing
Um,
problems that will look, and we will adjust. Like the nature has a way of finding the middle, right?
that was the other thing I was gonna say is that you asked the question of like, why are we less happy than the previous generation and the previous generation? Well, it's because we've turned a methodology into a metaphysical view. We've taken a methodology that is specifically designed to remove experience, to remove emotion, right, from the picture, and we've taken that abstract picture and turned it into our metaphysical view about what reality is, and removed the meaning necessarily by doing that in the
Yeah,
process. Like when
yeah,
you remove the mind, the experience from the method, and then you take the method and use that as a metaphysics, all of a sudden there's no meaning in
yeah.
your metaphysics, and you wonder why you're not happy. Like it's obvious.
And to tie it back to the beginning, we turn ourselves into a machine. And so it's really the reduction of the living being that is my concern, and the furthering of this idea that, look, I'm just a computer. I'm just a computer. There's nothing here but like a bunch of, electrical signals moving around. Why do I
Mhm.
care about anything? And then we're just surprised when we think of ourselves that way. We're very shocked and can't believe, why are we not so happy? Like, why are we unfulfilled? Why do we have no peace? Why are we anxious? And there's a reason, and that's what worries me about this conversation, is you see people doubling down on, I mean, look, it's to the point of not even it's not even a metaphor anymore. It's, I want to turn myself into a machine, upload me like the fly to my desktop computer so I can get rid of this stupid meat suit, you know?
Bro, imagining being on your deathbed, right? And you paid a whole bunch of money for like some expensive brain scan upload into another machine, and you just like die. And then they boot up the machine. It's got like this perfect neural network copy paste situation on it of like you. And then they boot up the machine and it goes, I'm alive. I'm Stash. But it's like not you. Like imagine, dude. Like your whole
Right,
family's
that's
gonna
like
be like, oh my god,
the
it's
same
him.
thing. Well, the thing is, the problem is that your loved ones won't know the difference.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
but here's the other thing to keep in mind, the higher level. When you die, I was just thinking, when you die, you'll realize right away, the instant that happens, that the mistake you made, and it's all fine. It's
You're
all
like
totally fine, you know? Like, it's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
oh, look at that silly dream character that thought he was gonna like live forever. No, I just wake up from the dream and realize the whole thing was a damn dream to begin with. So at the end of the day, even with the horror of what we see here in the dream that can happen, it's all fine. It's like I said, nature finds the middle through the suffering, and at the ultimate analysis, it doesn't really matter. But the suffering is real.
I like
Um,
that.
yeah,
Nature finds the middle through the suffering. I like
yeah.
that, dude. I don't
I
know that I've
mean,
heard that before.
well, I mean, it's just how
What are you,
things go, right?
Nostradamus or something? What's going on?
Well, you know, it's I think the time scale is not, though, to us dream characters preference, right? The time scale that I'm talking about is like geologic almost, you know, or like in epochs, not in years. And
Certainly not in a
so
human
that
lifetime.
finding through the suffering is also to be acknowledged as all that terrible suffering, right? So you have to hold both sides of that at the same time, and that is ultimately what that balance, that finding the middle is all about, right? Is not being completely consumed with the dream and thinking you need to upload yourself to the matrix, at the same time um uh caring about people suffering and your own suffering in the dream, you know, without being holding it overly tightly.
Well said, man. Well
Cool.
said. You ready to get up out of here?
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, dude, I hope everyone, if you made it this far, you probably already subscribed to us for sure. Maybe we should put that at
Yeah.
the beginning from now
If
on.
you're still watching, you're definitely already subscribed,
Yeah,
right?
you better be.
Right.
But yeah, help us build up. We're trying to get to 1K subs and keep going from there, and get some other guests on here once they, like, you know, realize we're not just, you know, chop liver. We
Couple
hope.
of but we are
Yeah, we
chopped
are.
liver.
We are. I mean, but it's fine. So anyway, we hope to get some new guests on here and stuff like that. We are going to have a cognitive scientist coming on soon, and doing some other things, and hopefully you guys can help us grow. So
Absolutely.
peace
That
out.
is the goal, is growth and to push this topic to a wider audience. I will also drop our TikTok links in the description. And I
Yeah,
have an alternate YouTube channel as well. I'll put that link in the description as well.
yeah, and obviously, you know, it's also because we are talking about the most important thing, and we have it right, and everyone else is wrong, and we have the key to the
Yeah.
universe. So
Yeah. When we
that's the
say
other reason that we do this.
when we say we are chopped liver, what we really mean is everyone else is chopped liver. And
Yeah.
we're
That's
not. So
clear. So
that's
just so you
really what I
understand our
mean.
motivation.
All right, we out of here.
See
Peace
ya.
out, everybody.